panting as if he had run from his house at the end of the long driveway, and she had to repeat it all again. He put his hands to his forehead, almost covering his eyes, and shook his head. "I don't understand," Olivia summarised. "He tried to hang himself." "Good heavens," gasped Martin. "Is he going to be all right?" "He's breathing," said Matron, "and there's a faint pulse. The ambulance will be here soon." Martin's sickly pallor was now strikingly similar to Freddie's. "I should call his parents," he said. "Burton, isn't it?" "Yes," said Leo. "He's in my dorm. The parents are divorced, so there are 2 numbers. Martin ran a hand through his thinning hair and pulled himself up into headmaster mode. "Fetch those numbers, would you please?" he said, "and don't say anything to the other boys yet. This needs to be handled sensitively." Olivia didn't envy Martin the task of breaking the news to Freddie's parents, a thought interrupted by the piercing scream of approaching sirens, and then everything happening very quickly. 2 paramedics checked Freddie's vital signs, put a collar round his neck, and whisked him off to hospital with Matron by his side. Martin and Olivia watched in silence as the ambulance sped away, its flashing blue lights fading into the inclement night. In the tense weeks that followed, an ominous cloud of rumour and disquiet descended on St. Bede's. The press relished an opportunity to engage in a bit of finger-wagging, vilifying those callous parents who farmed out the care of their offspring to expensive boarding schools. They dragged up cases where deviant adults had sought out such establishments in order to gain access to vulnerable children. Martin attributed these articles to resentment about perceived privilege and elitism, but it didn't help that Freddie's father, Toby Burton, gave an interview citing the school's near fatal neglect of his son's welfare. It was Freddie who set the record straight. He had lingered in a coma for 5 agonizing days before the prayers offered up at morning chapel were finally answered. He explained that he had hung himself from a coat hook as an early Halloween stunt, his sole intention being to scare the shit out of his friends. Freddie was well known as an attention seeker, a serial prankster, but even for him, this seemed extreme. Didn't he realize how dangerous it was, that he could have died? This, Martin confided in Olivia, is what he had asked when visiting Freddie in hospital, but the boy had shrugged and blamed it all on his friends. They were supposed to meet him in the dark and spooky changing room after supper, where they would have found him pretending to be hanged. He had stressed that, Martin said, because he was fed up with being asked stupid questions about whether he meant to harm himself. Olivia was surprised when Martin said that Freddie blamed Edward in particular, because he was the one who had piped up that Doctor Who was about to start, prompting Freddie's friends to forget him altogether. "Let's hope he never does anything like that again," said Olivia, to which Martin replied, "Amen." It was a relief when October half-term arrived, and at chapel on the last day of school, Martin urged staff and pupils to pray for a return to normality. They had just stood for a hymn, 3 rousing verses of "Give me joy in my heart," when the strangest sensation of dread crept over Olivia. Not a premonition as such, but an inexplicable sense of foreboding. At least, that's what she claimed later, although she had no more inkling than anyone else that before the year was over, another boy would be discovered close to death, and this time she would know his name. Chapter 1. The prospect of 10 days at the rectory was about to test Olivia's resolve to make the best of a bad situation. As she packed her bag, a suede Gucci hold-all that reminded her of more affluent